Hello and welcome to Agency Reporters panel discussion to celebrate Women's Entrepreneurship Day 2021, powered by MIQ. On the panel today, we have Dipika, Jaikishan, co-founder and chief operating officer, Basis; Naiyya Saggi, co-founder, the Good Glamm Group, founder, BabyChakra; Neeru Sharma, co-founder and director of platform business, Infibeam Avenues; Siddharth Dabhade, managing director, MIQ; and Swati, Bhargava, co-founder, Cashkaro. Allow me to extend a heartfelt gratitude to each of you wonderful ladies for inspiring not just us, but also setting precedents for future generations. We are excited to hear from you women leaders about your experiences, stories of barriers faced as you surged ahead with grit and a purpose. Siddharth, thank you so much for making the time to be a part of today's panel. Your invaluable experience with data and the digital world will strengthen our discussions. So let's dive straight in. Today, the evolving role of women entrepreneurs in economic recovery is grudgingly being accepted. Women entrepreneurs are transforming and challenging traditional understanding of professional success in this digital world. Through its impact on transactions, communications, and problem solving, the digital economy is increasing opportunities for businesses and changing the nature of how we work, clearly providing more avenues to women entrepreneurs. So in the course of next 50 odd minutes, we will try and understand some of the most effective models for supporting women-led businesses within the digital landscape and the steps that need to be taken by society to make the ecosystem more inclusive. Thank you once again for joining us for a discussion on unleashing the potential of women entrepreneurs in the digital economy. Let me open the floor by taking you back in time. We really would like to know about your first entrepreneurial venture and your journey to current times. How did you come up with the idea and start your business? Naiyya, shall we start with you?
Sure, happy to, Charu. First of all, it's a real privilege to be here with all the other panelists. I mean, all of them, I'm having a bit of a fangirl moment looking around at the table. See, BabyChakra was my first entrepreneurial venture, Charu. And the reason and the mission behind BabyChakra was, how do you create a platform that really works with moms as they go through this very critical transformative journey of pregnancy and parenting, and helps empower them the right way, right? Helps them make the best choices for themselves in a way that's most meaningful for them. So that was sort of the genesis of the thought behind BabyChakra. The seed behind the idea came from my time as a consultant at McKinsey, where I was working in healthcare in specific, and looked around me and sort of saw that the entire healthcare ecosystem was so fragmented. And if you look at the family at the heart of it all, right, there were like 15 or 20 different stakeholders talking in different languages and talking down to the mother, right, when the mother actually had to be in charge of her journey. And I think that's really where the seed of the idea came about. So BabyChakra was my first entrepreneurial venture. We recently got acquired about 3.5 months back. And I've since joined the group that acquired us as a co-founder. It's a company called mydala, which is recently rebranded to the Good Glamm Group. And today I'm looking across the spectrum, on working with my co-founders on how to build, a sort of a digital house of brands, and the largest digital house of brands out of South Asia. So that's my mandate today, with Mom Baby being at the heart of it all.
Right. Great. Sounds really interesting. Dipika, can I come and ask you the same question?
Hi, everyone. I'm very excited to be on this panel. We were catching up a little earlier. This is the first of many for me. I've heard of everyone in the past and followed your journey. Great to be in this discussion with y'all. So Basis is a financial services platform, a fintech catering to everything that has to do with women and money. And so far, we are the leading fintech destination where women come up. We have a community which sort of helps women ask any questions that have to do with their money. A very high context platform, which it came to very personal pain points, both for my co-founder and me. For Hannah, my co-founder, when she was going to Wharton, had sort of like a good student ticked off every checkbox in the list in terms of applications and gotten through the named universities in the world. But when the time came to look at the fees, much realized that, hey, I've been working for many years, didn't really plan how I'm going to fund this education. And a 200,000 education is not small. It was a privilege problem, but a problem nonetheless. Not denying that women at several situations in life face many such decisions. Should I take a personal loan? Should I take a credit card in many different formats? And for me, I've been in the space of wealth management and fintech for over 13 years now. Realized over time that there isn't a space for women to talk about money. There isn't a space for women like how bros just get together and talk about money, discuss the next IPO, discuss the next investment, and actually transact on it. There was no such space for women. And yeah, so Hannah had a background in technology. For me, it was wealth management, and it just made sense to join forces. We've known each other for over 2 decades now, since we were kids, and obviously now going into this journey where we're probably having kids soon. But yeah, it's been quite a journey, both in our personal lives and basis. We're now a platform of over 100,000 women in the midst of launching several products, really catering to all these needs that we're talking about. So we're a funded startup. We've had amazing folks backing us so far, and yeah, looking forward to everything that's coming up.
Right. Thank you, Dipika. Neeru, I come to you to ask you about your journey.
Sure. So thank you so much, Charu. I think it's indeed very inspiring. And every time I'm on such a panel, there's so much I learned. There's so many business ideas. You keep diving into yours, but then there's so much happening around. It's so energetic. So talking about myself, I was working with Amazon, and this was in Seattle, where I was a part of the M&A finance team at Amazon. And as part of my daily work, I had to look at a lot of companies to invest or acquire. And that is when I was given the charge of scoping out a company in India to acquire and figuring out. And at that time, what we realized was that India was far behind in terms of the e-commerce experience or the digital space. And this I'm talking about 2006, 2007 days, when there was a handful of portals. So a few like-minded people at Amazon, we joined hands, we moved back to India and set Infibeam avenues up. Now, we started as a retail portal. We gradually forayed into the platform payments space. We realized that just doing e-commerce standalone was kind of not a sustainable business proposition because of so much happening in this sector and so much of cash burn that was already happening. So we took a very conscious call of actually foraying into the platform and payment space, where we thought that rather than building one e-commerce portal helping customers, we could actually empower anybody who has a vision and a passion to set up an e-commerce presence. So that is where we launched Build the Bazaar, which was kind of a platform solution for anybody. And currently there is more than 1 crore of SME stores that we are hosting. And these are any person who has a very small store can also host his own store. In addition, we do a lot of enterprise businesses. So a few of the latest platforms that we are powering is, one is the prestigious government e-marketplace platform. Then there is Reliance JioMart. And there's a few names in the Middle East, etc., that we do. In addition to this, we acquired CC Avenues. We merged with CC Avenues, and this was in, I think, four years back. And since then, we entered into the payment space where there's a lot of stuff happening. Digital payments is actually changing its face every day. So starting with a simple digital payment gateway provider, we entered into an infrastructure business, infrastructure solutions, not only in India, but also abroad. Today, we are looking at digital lending, digital payment links, and all the other billing solutions that any client could ask for. So I think with the digital setup growing, more and more customers coming digital, there's a lot of demand in either the platform or the infrastructure or payment solution. And we just think that it's the tip of the iceberg and there's a long way to go.
Right. Thank you, Neeru, for creating so many smiles. And Swati, would love to know from you about your journey.
Sure. So I grew up in a small town called Ambala. Few people know the name also, but growing up, there was nobody from Ambala who had ever gone abroad to study. So I got a scholarship to study in Singapore for my A-levels. And I remember that my mom and all their friends got together for dinner to decide whether Swati should go to Singapore or not, because women were not going abroad to study. But fortunately, we all decided it was the right thing to do. And then I got a scholarship to the London School of Economics, where I studied mathematics and economics, again, a course that not a lot of women were taking up. And after that, I worked at Goldman Sachs in London for 5 years doing investment banking. And typically, we used to work from 8 a.m. till midnight every day. And after 5 years of doing that, me and my husband were like, "Itna kaam karna hai, to apna kuch kholte hai." So that's when we started looking around for ideas. We liked the idea of cashback in the UK. We thought in a country like India that loves to save money, it should do well. And we also saw that e-commerce was growing in India, right? So everybody needed a high ROI way of driving sales, of acquiring customers. So fast forward like 7-8 years later, we run Cashkaro, which is India's largest cashback and coupons website. And we expanded to launch a couple of other brands. We have Earn Karo, and last year we opened this offline network as well, where we have field staff and, the stores in tier 2 to tier 6 cities. So far we have raised about $15 million. Last round was, last year Series B, which came despite of COVID. So that was really good. And yes, well, this month we've basically crossed 100 crores in revenue. So we're hoping to reach the 200 crore mark this FY22. So that's the milestone. Been a fun journey, but of course, very used to the fact that there are not a lot of men around, no matter what I've done through my 16 years of career, but it's not really bothered any of us, has it?
Right. Thank you, Swati. And Siddharth, you've had a strong relationship with technology and a very interesting career graph for over 2 decades. Love to know more about your journey.
Yeah, so I also, kind of grew up in small towns, cities and villages. I studied I remember I studied doing anything, just playing cricket all the time kind of thing. And then from there, with a stroke of a bit of luck, got into IIT, and like it opened up the whole new world to me. And then from there, did my postgraduate in Calcutta, and then from there I joined IBM because I was very, very fascinated by technology and was trying to figure out, but I did not want to be a techie. I did not want to become a techie and always do tech work. So I wanted to be on the business side, but remain aligned to technology as well. So that's how I ended up at IBM after my MBA. And then from there, it has been a very interesting journey. I've always tried to look at what are the new technology trends which are coming up, and then how can I position myself to, take advantage of the new technology wave. So I was in tech with IBM and Microsoft for 8-9 years. Then I joined Google because I felt that Google is becoming the new Microsoft with all the Android operating system on phones, and that that move paid well, basically, in terms of my career journey. And I've been in digital media for a long time now, and looking at what are the new waves of digital media technology waves coming in, and how do I kind of look at those in terms of helping the businesses as well as riding the wave in the right way. The journey continues, but one of the regret which I've been having is that I could never find the courage as these courageous ladies have found to start their own ventures. So all kudos to all of you.
No, clearly what's coming out for me from hearing all of you is that, when you set your heart to something, there is no stopping you, I mean, the sky's the limit, right? And which is all of you proved that. So I'm going to just straight get on to the questions. And the first question I'm going to ask, and Swati, I'm really starting with you here, is that, as per a 2019 Google Bain report, women business owners could potentially create 150 to 170 million jobs in India by 2030. Yet, only 7 of 100 entrepreneurs in India are women. In your experience, what are the factors behind this appallingly low entrepreneurship rate?
Well, I mean, I'm just going to say what I think. I haven't really looked into any questions, answers and stuff. So, when I look at entrepreneurship, I feel that there are so many reasons why there are less entrepreneurs, women. Firstly, it actually starts when you're young. There are less women who get educated, less women go to college. After that, less women actually get into the workforce, let alone start a business. So when you look at the traditional funnel, I think for women, the funnel just keeps getting narrower and narrower, as we go. It goes like this, actually. So it gets narrower and narrower at the top. And I think it starts from, the women not getting enough education. There are people who, like parents also, they say to their girls, itna padh ke kya karna hai? Job bhi to karni hai, shadi to karni hai, kuch bhi kar le. So when you don't take careers seriously for girls when they're young, they don't grow up with that amount of seriousness and support and ambition because you've told them they're not meant to do that. So I think it somewhere starts over there. And then, of course, when we look at entrepreneurship, there are it's a tough journey, right? All of us know it. It's hard to raise money. It's hard to get a team. Even simple things like it's not always safe to travel in India. In Delhi, for example, I mean, if as an entrepreneur you have to work long hours, so infrastructure plays a role. Funding is hard to get. And I think support from family means a big thing, because as an entrepreneur, you really need support of all your family members, including your partner. And that's not always available because people expect certain stereotypical behavior at home also, that you must be present by X time, you must take care of X things. And as an entrepreneur, you can't always do that. I mean, I think for me, the fact that my husband works with me, he understands where I'm coming from, why I can't be there for certain things, and he helps me manage that with the family at home. That's why they don't say anything also. But I'd imagine that if I didn't have that support, it would have been really difficult. So yeah, I think it just starts off from there.
Right. Naiyya, you want to add something to that?
Yeah, happy to. So, Charu, just to give you some context, right? I mean, capital is the lifeblood of entrepreneurship, right? Without capital, you cannot be an entrepreneur. Let's be very real about it, right? You could be very passionate, very mission driven, very determined, but if you don't have even basic seed capital, how will you build a business and how will you hire a team? Right. And I'll just give you a personal experience. When I moved back from Boston after my MBA at Harvard, I'd gone on 2 scholarships, I'd gone into Fulbright and the Tata Endowment. I'd worked at McKinsey. I was like top of my class, etc. Right. I came back and the first question I was asked by, this so-called prolific angel investor was, what happens when you become pregnant? And I remember that was it was like a bucket of cold water on my face, right? Because I was like, here I am trying to sort of solve for the lives of millions of expecting moms and new moms in India. And that mission and that drive itself is being undermined by someone I'm seeking capital from. Right. And I think those numbers are reflective of where we stand today, right? I mean, you have less than 2% of venture capital funding going to women entrepreneurs, right? And at the angel level, I mean, the numbers are abysmally low as well, right? So I think if you come down to access to capital, and even today, if you're looking at a woman entrepreneur who's setting up maybe not a technology-enabled business, but just a regular mom pop shop, a tailoring dukan, or something that the SMEs, right, that drive the economy, right? She has to take capital in her husband's name, right? So when you don't have access to capital, I think that itself is a big stunter for drive of women being entrepreneurs. And I think the second piece is just look at the people who are giving us capital as well, right? I mean, if you walk into boardrooms, and all of us have on this panel so many times, right? Into IC meetings, and you're looking across a largely male cohort. And I think many times when you're pitching, and this happened to me as well. I walked in when I was 9 months pregnant, and I was told to come back 3 months later from an IC meeting. And I was like, what changes in 3 months? Nothing. The business hasn't changed. Like quarter on quarter, nothing changes. The metrics are all there to see. But something changes for that IC in the entrepreneur because she is 9 months pregnant at that point in time of pitching. So I think those are some of those unconscious biases from very well-intended people, for the most part, that we need to change. And I think panels such as these do a good job of at least getting the word out.
No, very well said, actually. Naiyya, you gave me goosebumps when you talked about that example, and I could actually visualize that. Neeru, I'm going to ask you that, clearly what's evident and what Swati and I have been also talking that, women entrepreneurship is indispensable for long-term economic growth in today's high-tech world. So how is ICT, information and communication technologies, facilitating entrepreneurship amongst women?
So I think if we talk about ICT sector, right? So whatever biases we are talking about being an entrepreneur. So I've been in panels where we are talking about women leaders. So I don't see a lot of women leaders even in the IT sector. I mean, this is a harsh reality, and this is not in India. I've seen this trend in the US. I mean, when even in Amazon boardroom meetings, I've never been in a group where there was an equal participation. Forget an equal participation, even a 20% participation of women, right? So I think there is something which is fundamentally wrong, that the women are not able to rise beyond a certain level. Now, the bias, yes, there is a cultural bias that it brings. So in ICT, specifically, what I have seen is there is a fair mix, at least at the junior level, at the mid-management level, there is a fair mix of females and male audience. And the reason is, I think, more and more education, the engineering backgrounds, etc. So these colleges are taking in a lot of female crowd is opting in for this, probably because they think that there is a comfort in working in the digital sector. This is a very stable sector, a growing sector. There's lots to do. And at the same time, most of them could be in MNC companies. Because I see a lot of, I mean, when I was a part of TCS, there was a fair mix of females and males. So I think as part of our HR mandate also, they have to have certain portion of females definitely recruited. Then all the other biases have to be removed. I mean, there has to be maternity policy, there has to be all sort of flexible schedules that they want for, plus any I would say any abuses or any kind of conversations which they are not comfortable with. I think we have to maintain a culture that those conversations do not happen. So all of this is taken very seriously. So I think more and more light we are able to give to it. Women are more comfortable, young girls are more comfortable in being a part of a team, and that is when the biases go away. But this is all related to an employee, right? So an employee coming to an ICT company, but when it comes to an entrepreneur, I think it takes much more than that. Because entrepreneurship, I think the very base I think the very basic problem is that they think it's a phase in life. Arey karke dekh lo. Like, what do you mean by karke dekh lo? Matlab, it's not a phase. I mean, you once an entrepreneur is always an entrepreneur. You keep eyeing so many things. I mean, some idea could look weirdly wrong because every idea was weirdly wrong at some point in time. But then you do it, you pursue it, and you succeed, right? So वो जो करके देख लो वाला attitude है ना, वो that is in itself a problem. You cannot show somebody an exit path on day one. As soon as you show an exit path, trust me, I mean, you've kind of biased their passions and their sincerity and whatever they wanted to bring to the table. So I think as women entrepreneurs, I think one big thing is that just trust your passion, yaar. Once you trust your passion, ना मतलब हो जाएगा. वो you have to go out there and you have to start talking about it. Support system, I think, as Swati said, it's very, very important. And when I started with my entrepreneurial journey, it was in the ICT space. But even my co-founders, right, they made it very sure. And I had a 9-month-old daughter when I started this. So they made sure that if I had to work from home, if I needed a flexible work schedule, all of that was kind of unsaid. I mean, yes, I could have all of those because there was a passion and skill I was bringing to the table. So all of this did not matter. So I think that really helped me.
Right. Dipika, want to add to that?
Yeah, for sure. I think everything that like Naiyya was saying was just so resonating with me because for us it's just been so fresh, so much of this journey. But I think even as women, right, like apart from everything else that exists externally, our inner critic is so damn loud. Like compared to a man who has an idea, who's ready to jump and take that leap. A woman's inner critic is really loud, even with bases, right? You think of everything that can go wrong even before you've like put that plan in place, right? I remember when I was thinking of like taking this entrepreneurial plunge. I was like, oh my God, there won't be a salary. Oh my God, then my husband will judge me for not bringing that money home. Oh my God, if we have kids and by then, if things are not in place. Or what if a fundraise doesn't happen? Or what if you fail? I think that what if you fail is such a big fear that exists. And you can actually turn that around. Like now the conversation usually is like, okay, what if you fail? Like what's the worst thing that can possibly happen, right? And it took some time to get to this point, but it has. And that makes it much easier for us as women because then whatever someone else says doesn't matter because you've tackled these conversations internally already. Because so now someone tells me, what if you fail? It doesn't matter because I've already had that chat with myself. I've already planned, okay, even if it does, which it won't, even if it does, this is like plan A, this is plan B, this is plan C. Unfortunately, as women, the scenario planning is a lot more than men. But if it's something that has to be done, then it has to be done. And what we were also alluding to a little earlier when Swati was talking about like family support systems and things like that. Very early on, it hasn't happened with me, but I know with a lot of like entrepreneur friends, right? So their families probably think it's a hobby. Like, kar legi, dekh lenge. Like, she likes like fashion, right? Like she likes fashion. Okay, let her just do it for a few months. Like she'll figure out that this is not for her. But they don't realize it's not a hobby. This is a profession. This is a business. This is something really larger than ourselves that we want to create, and we're going to go for it. And that's literally really so many roadblocks, even with families, right? Like luckily for me, my husband is like super supportive. As for Henna, both of them have played very critical roles in our fundraisers, getting stuff together for us, the right set of people, etc. But I know other women who don't have this kind of support. They have to fight every day. And, like Naiyya was saying, when you're going for, an IC or a fundraise, and when you're pregnant, I can't remember who this was. I want to say it was Mom's Company or Mama Earth. And someone said something similar, like she just reached for a fundraise meeting or one of those. And she got a call from her child's school that he's not well or she's not well, and if you can come and pick them up, and she had to go. But these problems don't exist for men. And I think one thing, I was in another panel a few days ago, and there was this whole discussion of all the problems, right? But I think as women, we've also gotten into this super solution mindset, right? Like, okay, this is the problem that exists or can exist. How can I factor it and work towards? And I think as Indian women, especially, it's like a superpower to solve for stuff. And we had like one investor who actually ended up investing with us, and he was literally like, it would be stupid of me to bet against Indian women because they can just make shit happen. Right? I think things are also moving in that direction. It's literally how we want to see it. We can sit in this room and talk about all the problems, or we can talk about all the stuff we're doing and the stuff that we can do to make this easier for ourselves. I'm going to selfishly say for ourselves, as it gradually happens for ourselves, it's going to reflect in the ecosystem as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm really tempted to ask Siddharth if men also go through a similar, self-critique thing, but I will refrain and take this offline. And Dipika, I'm going to continue with you and ask you, how did you come up with initiatives or financing models that are supporting women entrepreneurs by scaling up access to financial products and services?
So we haven't very specifically done that, Charu, because our focus is not just women entrepreneurs. Our focus is actually any urban woman who's salaried or is an entrepreneur, is a freelancer, etc. We are in the midst of launching, several of these products that will aid not just, again, like I said, not just women entrepreneurs, any woman who's at a situation in her life when there is something she requires, and we'll facilitate that requirement. Of course, basis it makes sense, help her like evaluate things like, if it's going to work, it's not going to work. I think the stuff that I was talking about, inner critic, etc. I know largely the basic community has helped a ton of women get over that, right? Because A, when you realize you're not alone, B, when you realize, what, these 5 women have figured it out with their support and more, I can figure it out too, right? So in terms of like, we're not just catering to women entrepreneurs. So yeah, I wouldn't talk about anything specific in their context. It's the larger urban millennial woman that we're talking about here.
Right. Great. So that, let me come to you now and ask you, the pandemic has clearly rendered the traditional rules invalid and compelled almost every entrepreneur to adopt digital means. Where does data fit into the picture, and how can it enable entrepreneurs to be in a more powerful position?
So I think, and I would be stating this obviously, or this would be like stating the obvious, but data is very, very critical, right? And what I've seen, I work for large companies, I work for smaller companies as well. I also work with a lot of startups during my journey. And what I've seen is that I think we are at a phase here where, you can create or you can have small applications on the internet, on the cloud. And basically, you need to obviously look at your business model, and look at what data is really, really critical for you. That is very, very important, and then accordingly enable technology for yourself, and just apply the 80-20 rule. What is the 20% of the data which is really helping you to understand 80% of your business, and then enable it with tech. And you can do it with very, very simple tools nowadays as well, right? I've seen many companies have become very big by using simple Google Sheets, and then at a later time they were able to have applications as well. But then simplicity rules really. So you should not have tech for the sake of tech, but definitely you should have the data, and how you manage that data, how you manage your important data, track it, measure it, reflect on it. That is very, very critical. Meaning. For example, currently I'm working as an entrepreneur. My role is to expand into new markets for my company, and there are a few key metrics which I have built in for myself as a dashboard, and I have taken a bit of help from my tech department and got it automated. But that's about it. I use that as a simple sheet for me for my weekly reflection, for understanding how my business is going. And very interestingly, I rely on one of my management professional who is a woman. She's brilliant in terms of managing the process, getting the right data in place. She knows the stuff very well as well, and I rely on her to really because if anyone comes to me saying that okay, this is what we need to do, can you let me know? I always ring her up and say that, hey, tell me what does the data say, what do you think about this, and then I take the decision because I'm just leveraging her strength. She's so good in process. She's so good in figuring out the right data, and then from there we are able to take the right decisions. So I'm a big believer in this.
Any suggestions you want to give that one should keep in mind while choosing the right tech solution partner?
So it depends on what your business is, right? But if, for example, if you are in the business where marketing is very critical for you, right? So then how do you look at automation of your marketing efforts is very critical, and basis that you can figure out what tools do you need. But again, my suggestion would be not to go for anything complex initially. Go with simple tools initially, and build it from there. Yeah, meaning sometimes companies or startups over invest in tech, which is also not healthy, not required as well.
Right. Thank you. Neeru, I'm curious to know that as a modern day entrepreneur, how do you think the power of social media can effectively be leveraged by women who are dipping their toes in entrepreneurship?
So I've seen a lot of startups, Charu, who are not doing a lot of offline marketing, but they have started to engage their target audiences on social media. And when we say engaging them, it's about not doing direct marketing at all. They try to touch upon certain elements of your regular life where you kind of create need for your product. So I think as women, one thing I can proudly say that we know how to crack the emotional quotient, at least with our audiences, be it a client, be it a customer, be it family, be it whosoever, right? So being out there on social media and then engaging with them to kind of create a need, to kind of nurture an emotion which you want them to remember, and then they start relating your brand perhaps with that kind of an emotion. And now all you have to do is engage with them, nurture on that thought time and again, because social media, one big problem is also that out of sight is out of mind. So you have to be on top of it. You have to make sure that regularly you are engaging with them, at the same time not spamming them, so that a right quantity and quality of messaging is going out to them. And I think those are the brands that create long lasting impressions. And this is a power anybody can crack. I mean, you don't really need to hire a very big marketing firm to create that kind of a message, because simple stories today are conveying the strongest ideas. And it's high time that all entrepreneurs, be it women or men, they start recognizing that and start leveraging it.
Right. Okay. Naiyya, your thoughts on the whole digital landscape? I mean, it's far from being regulated at this point in time, so that becomes a big challenge. And how can the industry contribute towards creating an inclusive entrepreneurial ecosystem for economic transformation in this digital world?
So, Charu, I've said this before, but if I look at, I think India offers massive opportunity for an entrepreneur in tech, and specifically, I think consumer tech, right? The reason I say this is because if you look at, women who are consumers of the internet today, right? The ratios are really skewed in India versus globally. Globally, it's like a 51-50 ratio of men to women who are consuming the internet. In India, it's 70-30, right? Maybe the numbers have changed a little bit here and there, but that's the ratios, right? So if you look at where the opportunities lie, right, it is actually in women becoming more and more, not just the consumers of technology, but equally the creators of technology, right? And that is, I think, the next wave that's before us. Also, if you look at some of the, sometimes tech is very disruptive if you look at the ways, but if you look at the heart of tech, it basically mimics a lot of behaviors we see offline, right? So, I mean, if you look at the social trust, the monikers of transactions, of barters, right? All of that is being reflected in, for instance, crypto today, right? In so many ways, right? But in a very disruptive way, but nonetheless, I think the heart of it, the core, the behaviors are still sort of mimicked by tech in so many ways. So if I sort of take that and transpose that into behaviors offline, 80% of all household consumption decisions in India are being made by women, right? So if I just sort of map these two pieces together, right, the fact that the growth of online is going to be led by women, because that is sort of the missing piece that's still existing in India today. And number two, if I look at the consumption and the online consumption potential for disruption there, right? If we get more and more women online, they are naturally sort of creating as well as increasing the basket of online consumption. So for us, it's a no-brainer. I mean, if you want to look at becoming like a, multi-trillion dollar economy, right, you have women, not just being consumers of the internet, but also equally creators of the internet. Right. So I think that's really where opportunities will lie for women to participate. I'm quite optimistic there as well. I mean, if I look at sort of, and I say this often, I use this phrase, I use digital democracy, right? I am very optimistic about, I mean, we have the lowest rates of data today. We've leapfrogged from like, we don't even have a laptop like generation, right? We've leapfrogged from like saying, like having landline connections to being like a smartphone first country, right? I'm very optimistic about the participation, but I do think some of the financial levers to enable this participation of women in the online economy still need to be sorted out, right? So women should not be using credit cards because, I mean, they never get access to credit in the first place, right? So how do you sort of transpose that to have more women sort of participate? I think those are open questions before us.
Swati, you want to add to that? I can see your hand up.
Yeah, I just raised it because, when we're talking about creation of content by women, I wanted to share my own example, right? So when I left Goldman, I did not have a social media profile anywhere, right? Because at Goldman, you don't think about such stuff, right? So after that, I built my LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, everything. And now that over the last 1 year during lockdown, I basically became active on Instagram. We started hosting this thing called the CK Morning Show, where, I would get the whole team together for a virtual call at 9:30 a.m. video call. Helps us all connect, a lot of culture building. I started posting all that on Instagram. So I think, but what it takes, right, is that it takes you to be okay to put yourself out there. And that is a little harder for women, although I think men find it hard to create content in the first place. But, it's just what I've seen. But I think for me, it was a conscious call. And then you have to be okay with the fact that wherever you go, people know what you're up to. And that your team also knows everything and your personal also. It's just like all getting mixed up, So you have to be okay with that. But I think it's paid off because I feel... the brand building that happens with that, and then it also has a very positive impact on your business. Like Naiyya and Neeru and everybody also said that creation of that content actually for entrepreneurs, people see your brand through you sometimes, right? So I think it's important for them to see the human face, to know that. So now I have customers who also write to me complaints also, and I tell CRM that I've become a support desk, but the thing is, then these customers never go away because they feel that okay, they have somebody who's listening. And I mean, queries always come up for everybody in every business, right? If you see Vijay Shekhar's Twitter also, it will have lots of my wallet recharge not happened before anybody appreciates Paytm, right? So I think that is important. So I'd say to people and to women out there that you should not hesitate to put yourself out there. It's really not as difficult. And the other thing is that women should really support other women. I've seen that there are, when I am appreciative of others and they're appreciative of me, we support each other so much more. Versus it's like, when they say you should be the woman who fixes the other woman's crown, not the one who laughs behind and say, hey, have you seen a crown is actually crooked, right? So It depends what kind of a woman you want to be. And there's a lot of talk that women tend to be more bitchy and they don't support. But I've actually seen differently. I mean, if I see my entrepreneur friends in the Indian ecosystem, we were just together for a dinner the other day and everybody was sharing so openly what they are seeing on fundraise, what was their deal like, if they got acquired, what did they get, everything, right? So we were all genuinely be like, yaar, mera ho gaya, tu bhi kar le, right? Which is a great thing, as opposed to, because why do we think that it's limited? It doesn't have to be limited. These things are, I mean, right now, insane amount of capital is available for the Indian ecosystem. So I think that feeling, where women should basically support each other. And the last point I wanted to make was that I think it's very important that we keep telling women around us to go take that seat on the table. I tell that to my women colleagues at Cashkaro as well. Whenever we go into a meeting room, the women will go sit piche kahin in the corner dinner, and the men will come and sit on the table. And then I'll be like, excuse me, can you please come here? And then I'll be telling them, you come and sit on the table. Don't think that you should be in a place where nobody sees you. Actually, it's the opposite. You should be where everybody does see you. So because you are trying to like, what have you got to hide? It's always the men who think they're doing a great job, and the women, like they say, blame their success on 100 other factors. But I think that feeling has to come out a little bit more in women, to give themselves that credit, basically.
Right. Swati, you started with international markets before turning to domestic, right? And so could you shed some light on initiatives that enabled you in expanding your network in your journey, and also talk about opportunities to link with both domestic and global markets?
Yeah, well, for me, both internationally and domestically, our business started on LinkedIn. So coming out of Goldman, we did not have any contacts neither in UK or here. So we just went to LinkedIn and we started writing to our partners, to journalists. When we moved to India, I remember writing to Kunal Bell for Snapdeal and to Jabong. And then I was on Twitter when somebody asked me, isn't Amazon on Cashkaro? And I said, no, it's not. I'm sorry, you can shop on Snapdeal. And somebody from Amazon saw it and they were like, hey, why are we not on Cashkaro? Don't send our traffic somewhere else. So that's so for me, like, social has been a big part of it. And even today, like, I think there's a lot of merit to being active on LinkedIn. So whenever I post a LinkedIn update, as your network grows, you get 60,000-70,000 views of your own in a day, and then that is going to potential customers, it's going to potential partners. So we always get a lot of inbound saying, hey, how do we work together? So business development also happens on the side, so I think for me, that's the main thing in terms of how we've used internet. Of course, when we came to India, I also tried to, attend some events and meet other people, to kind of just get out a little bit, because I had no idea how India works. And then I became co-chair for H2 India, which is an entrepreneur, organization, some of your members as well. So got to know the ecosystem more through that. So I think it's a combination of investment of time and interest and, genuinely wanting to build a network. And then after that, I don't do anything for networking anymore. Honestly, I just do what is fun. And it's good that we have friends who are entrepreneurs now. So it just organically feels nice.
Right. Dipika, you want to add to that?
Just one thing, and I think it came from we were talking to an investor. I think this Sunday I was talking to him and he was literally like, so much of what anybody does as an entrepreneur, and here I'm not going to say men, women, I'm not just going to get the gender angle here, it's projection, right? And a lot of what Swati was saying, your users, your customers, whatever platform you're creating, whether it's one like ours, or whether it's like Naiyya's, or whether it's like Swati's, right? There is so much relatability that comes in the moment you're telling your story your way, right? Like someone might hear, I may have heard of say what Naiyya just said, right? I went into this meeting when I was 9 months pregnant. I would have heard it from someone else. The impact would have been so different versus hearing it from here, right? And that's also how you leverage the power of digital. I'm not a big fan of oversharing. In fact, I cringe when that happens. Not very active on Instagram on my personal account, apart from here and there. But yeah, fully tuned into what's happening. I think more of Twitter. I think it's also what you're comfortable with, right? Like, where are you comfortable creating your content? Where are you comfortable sharing your opinions? Not so much on Insta, most probably on Twitter, where people are sitting to troll you. And LinkedIn, it's a more professional platform. I think these platforms also are growing. Networks are growing. For me, I think I also don't find the need of having so much of digital creation, because in the course of what we're doing or otherwise, you tend to interact with so many people. And I say this a lot, and also at the risk of sounding silly, sometimes you just have to be a good person. I was telling my husband while Diwali, I'm like, so many people have written like personalized messages to me. I didn't know I was so liked. And he was laughing and he was like, what makes you think they wouldn't like you? I was like, I make no effort. I'm not out there on social media, or I'm not out there in these networks. He's like, not everyone appreciates that. So while you leverage digital and do all of that stuff, it's also important to just keep like who you are in place, right? We've seen that happen a lot. You've seen entrepreneurs as they grow, even when a couple of thousand followers or lakh followers on various platforms, their attitudes change. When I interact with them, I've noticed attitudes change, because suddenly you think you're beyond an entrepreneur. I'm a social media personality. I'm larger than life in so many different ways. As long as whatever you do in terms of content creation, putting yourself out there keeps you grounded, it's fine. I mean, that's a risk I feel I run. Will I become like larger than the brand? Like, I don't want to compromise my company for anything, right? Especially not because I feel a certain way about myself. So I think just being mindful of these checks and balances. And again, this doesn't happen with women. This does tend to happen with men. And I guess that's just the nature of who we are as people too.
Right. Okay. So, Dipika, do you believe that a targeted mentorship model could act as an enabler for women entrepreneurs? I mean, what role did mentorship play in your journey?
Absolutely, Charu. I think I saw it in the discussion points a little earlier. I'll just take a moment to talk about it. I think very particularly, I haven't had a mentor or a role model of sorts, right? Very early on, with some of our early investors onto this journey. But I know people keep saying my mentor is like my professor from university, or my mentor is my father, or my mentor is whoever. I haven't had that. And I'm not going to make somebody up to make it feel like, oh, I've had this kind of like mentorship, right? I think, and then, yeah, you do tend to make more mistakes than somebody else, and you don't always have the time to make mistakes. Sometimes you don't. And I do wish, oh, there was somebody or a set of people who could have guided. But yeah, you're now you realize that you didn't have that, you build on it. But I think the ecosystem is also stepping up with programs like whether it's Sequoia Sparks, really supporting women entrepreneurs. I think Kalari has a program of sorts. A couple of other investors also are launching. So this is just beyond the capital, right? This is beyond the capital. They're giving a platform for women to interact with other women who in some format would serve as role models or mentors to them. It's also where you want to be in the ecosystem, right? So for me, maybe sometime from now, I want to be an investor. So maybe more than running my business today, I look for mentors who can help me think through that process. So I think thinking of where you want to be is also super critical than just thinking about, how I want to run my company or what I want to do today. Because I think that if you don't have that forward thinking mindset, you really get set behind very easily. And unfortunately, as a woman, far so.
Right. Anybody wants to add to that?
Sure. So I think one small point, I think I can cite an experience. So we went to an offsite event, and there's this young girl who comes to one of the peoples I know, and she tells her that I'm really inspired by Neeru ma'am, although I've never spoken with her. So it just kind of sounded so good because there's no positive, there's no direct connect that I have with this girl. But then only hearing you, the way you were thinking about things, etc., she is inspired. But then I went up to her and I asked her that if you think so, why don't you come to me and talk sometime? She never had the courage to, because she said I did not have an agenda. So I think one inhibition factor in all the women out there is that they think that you also always need to have an agenda when you go out to network. See, sometimes you just need to connect because there is a human at the other side of the table. And only when you talk about all these passion and your success stories yourself, I think that is when they know that you're so passionate about an idea, and links start building. Networking is very important. Business is a continuity and it's not an island. I think everybody needs to understand that. Once they do, all they need to do is set up courage to have those first few meetings. And then you are through with it. Now you know what your speech is, what your dialect is, how does it work, and it only gets better from there.
Right, right.
I just want to add to that. I think Neeru said this so well. When I was pregnant, I remember, and at that point in time, I remember being very, very, I'm saying this quite openly now. I remember being like, thinking about, okay, what would my team think about, where I would be placed to run the business? How would I share this with my board? Right. And of course, everything went up very beautifully, very smoothly. In fact, I really credit my board and, especially Arihant Patni, who was on my board at that point in time, for being a very, very strong champion always. And in fact, wishing me nothing but the very best, right, on the journey that I was to embark on. But, I wish at that point in time, I'd seen more women entrepreneurs. I knew of stories of more women entrepreneurs who had been pregnant, had a motherhood journey, while building out businesses at scale, right? And I love the fact that Neeru now talks about the fact that she had a 9-month-old daughter when she was building out her company, right? I wish I'd known that story before. I remember looking up Upasana's story at MobiQuick, her having a little child at home. But there are very few stories. So I think, just building on what Swati said, and by the way, Swati does a kick-ass job of content creation, right, on all of social. I think she sets a precedent for all of us. But I think, a couple of things that, I think we're all trying to do is basically also give out those authentic stories, which maybe hopefully inspire people, right? So when we actually got acquired, I was thinking about what is the most meaningful point that I could share. And I shared the story of my child, of Arya, looking at the press clipping, right? Because she was the first person I pretty much shared the press clipping with. And that, I think, touched a chord with so many mothers. I got like thousands of emails that day. And I'm not kidding. I got thousands of emails saying that you're a young mother. You've inspired us to like set a new direction for our kids, right? For little girls in specific. So I just wish there were more stories out there. Neeru, I will certainly be connecting with you offline as well in your journey. But I think these are stories that I think as we share, I mean, Swati sharing her story, right? I mean, married couples, you go through so many biases, right? Implicit biases when you're fundraising. Her stories are amazing. I've been reading her stories. They're amazing, and how they manage that professional bond. So I think there are these stories that need to be told more than before.
No, I agree with you completely. I think that is the only way to inspire more and more women, and get them to just do away with that inhibitions they have. So, misinterpretations and misconceptions regarding women's entrepreneurial role continue, indicating that we still have a long way to go, clearly, which has been evident through all our discussions. And I'm going to take a neutral ground here and come to you, Siddharth, and ask you, how can policymakers and regulators contribute towards the creation of an enabling policy and regulatory ecosystem for women entrepreneurs? Or if you think that they may not have much of a role to play, and it's something we need to do as a society. Your views on this.
Yeah, so also in the spirit of sharing a story, I would love to share a story and then answer your question related to this only. So so when we launched this business in India, we are in MNC and we launched this business, and we believe in localizing the solution. So we are into programmatic media, and we said that we will localize and we'll create the best programmatic product in India here for Indian market. And my product manager was a lady, and basically, for last 18 months we've been doing that. We have obviously we've got a lot of clients. We've got a kick-ass product, and that's why it is all happening in a very good way. And at some point in time, she told me that the reason why, basically, she went out and did a lot of new stuff, because obviously, we are a company who is headquartered in UK. So when a company with more Western roots comes to India, there's a lot of localization which happens, because still the Western markets and India market is very, very different. So you have to, just a simple example, Western markets are driven a lot by computer and tablets. We are driven entirely by mobile. So the whole paradigm changes. And this lady, our product manager, she just went out, and she had also worked in Western markets earlier, and for her also India market was new. But she kind of kept figuring out and kept going towards doing new experiments and evaluating new technologies, new solutions which could be applicable. And she did so much of innovative work. And one thing which she told me was that every time, whenever I was doing something new, I used to feel that if I fail, what will happen? And you used to tell me that nothing is going to happen. We're just going to move on, right? And that really, really, really helped me to keep taking risks and keep doing these experiments, because I just did not want to fail. You told me that failing is okay. So I learned a lot from that, because obviously I'm an experienced person. I know that if we don't take risks, nothing is going to happen. We have to figure out some new things, and in that failure will happen. But for her, it was a game changer. But entire credit goes to her, because she did all the work. I was doing only meetings. She actually did the whole product work basically. So I think the lesson here is, to answer your question, Charu, is society has to change. I think our governments, our policies are a reflection of us only, and and I would say, it's the fear is with everyone. Fear is with men, fear is with women as well. But there are some more real hurdles for women which are not there for men, and that is largely a difference. So it's very realistic to say that when a woman hesitates, she has some very real reasons, right? And that's the reason why those are there, and hence we have to look at eliminating the real reasons, and we also have to look at how do we as a society encourage our women leaders or our women colleagues to do well and not be fearful of the failure. And I think from there, policy always, crypto has come in, policy will come now, right? That's what will happen. I'm just giving an example here. I don't know about that, but that's how things happen, right? Innovations happen first, and then policies happen.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we as a society have to lead with this, and we have to remove the real hurdles and also give that psychological safety to our women colleagues.
I completely agree with you. And I think all of these ladies have already, set the stage for the next generation to really take the plunge. And this brings me back to my last question. And this is really for all of you. And, we will just do a round robin on this one as concluding remarks from everyone. What advice would you give to young women to help them seize entrepreneurial opportunities and increase their chances of success? Siddharth, you want to go first, and before we move on to the rest of the panel.
Sorry, I could not hear you exactly, Charu.
So really looking at an advice, your last two points or 1 point on what advice you would give to young women to help them seize entrepreneurial opportunities and increase their chances of success.
You're right. I think, I would say women should look at their own strengths, right? And what I have observed in my working life is that women are more process oriented. Generally, whenever I have had a lot of women as my colleagues and in my team, they have always been able to kind of make me, a bit of not having so much work because they've been able to do all the work kind of thing. So it's like they have the power of persistence. They're very process oriented. They're very creative as well. They're definitely more creative than men. So look at your strengths and then go from there. And most importantly, I think it is basic human I would say human idea that as long as you have some vision which is dear to you and you are persistent about it, you can achieve it. At the end of the day, it is not even about men and women. You have to be true to your vision, persist about it, and you can achieve it. And I would add one more thing is that ask for help, right? Don't get bogged down by the hurdles which you have. Women definitely have more hurdles than men. Don't get bogged down by it. Ask for it, cry for help. Shout for help. Communicate more, but don't just get restricted by the hurdles, because many times your counterparts don't realize that these are the hurdles you have, and if you tell them, then they're able to realize, oh, okay, this is what you have as a hurdle, and probably I can do something to remove those. So yeah.
Right. Thank you, Swati.
Sorry, just unmuting. So some of the tips, I sort of covered before in terms of putting yourself out there and also to take your seat at the table. Something else I would add, which I would actually say for men and women both, is to just make sure that you have a very good team with you. I think that has been like my one big learning to how to attract the right talent and how to retain it. Don't forget that this is actually the most important thing, because no matter what we want to do in our businesses, scale, fix, you need people for everything, and you just can't do it alone, men or women. So that's number one. The second I would say is that when you think about fundraise, don't think that because I'm a woman, I will have a problem. Focus on what is the potential of the business that you're trying to convince investors with. What are the unit metrics? What is your path to growth? Make sure you have a very solid story, and then go out for fundraise, and then see if you really get it or don't. Because honestly, in my experience so far, I have not faced any prejudice from investors being a woman. In fact, I feel that I've been able to strike a good conversation and have a good relationship as well. So maybe I got lucky and I didn't have those experiences, but I think sometimes we just also should not think that ye hona hi hai mere sath, itna hi zaruri nahi hai ki ye hona hai, ho gaya. Maybe with some people it's happened, and of course people like Naiyya are, that's an incredible story, right? And maybe I've not been pregnant, that's why I haven't had that experience, but I really admire how you guys have done it, and I think people should take inspiration from people like her, right? And the last thing I would say is that make sure you take out time for yourself, because as a woman and as a man as well, we tend to, really run around for businesses. Entrepreneurship is not easy. You have family who's always like saying, why are you not showing up for anything? But in the middle of all of that, you need to take out time for yourself, have a morning routine, ideally, if that works for you, because then you've set yourself up and believe that you are going to get it, right? And manifest your success, visualize your success, think about how you want meetings to go. There is a part that I think all this plays in success, and, one should invest in it. So yeah, and be confident. And the last thing I say, even to myself sometimes when I'm not feeling like it, is just fake it till you make it. So sometimes I go to office and, I feel that leaders are like batteries, right? They need to be fully charged to actually convey that charge to everyone and give that positive energy and vibes. And we all go through ups and downs in life. Sometimes I may not be feeling 100 when I go to office, but I smile, I talk to people, and actually I feel better, right? So I'm like maybe faking it that I'm fine, and then I actually make it as well. So I think fake it till you make it works for most things.
Right. Dipika.
I think what I sort of said in the beginning, right, Charu, I think there are so many challenges internally before anything external, before having a business plan and before having all of it. Tackle everything right in the beginning, which can potentially like become a blocker for you yourself, right? Because imposter syndrome, like name it, as women, we face everything. So have those conversations with yourself. If you require a business coach, do that. If you require a therapist, do that. Before you take this plunge, none of us are doing this. At least I know most of us are not doing this. We don't really build a business with the idea to cash out, right? You're building a business because you want this to last for as long as it can and all of that stuff. So no, it's like a marriage and a lot more. I think I'd give a lot more time to basis than I do to my marriage. And super important when you're planning all of this stuff. I mean, your partner is super critical, your life partner, your business partner, your co-founder. It takes time. I know founders who said they go for therapy with their co-founder, right? None of this is stuff that is unreal. None of this is stuff that is taboo. And I think as you're going through a journey, share it with other women, right? Like you get so much confidence and so much support just knowing, not the bad stuff necessarily, but just knowing she went through this too. And she came through it. She kind of delivered on everything. She had a child. She ran her business. She got married. She succeeded, or she didn't get married. Whatever she wanted to achieve, right? She did it. So I think as women entrepreneurs, more than what advice we give young girls, what we do is going to set a larger example than us telling them, like walking into a room and giving a TED talk. Or I think it works for those good 20 minutes, but not more than that. What you see is what you're going to believe. And just one point here, I mean, I did want to say it when Siddharth said, he mentioned that women should ask for help and cry for help and shout for help. I don't think we need to do that. We don't need to cry for help. We don't need to shout for help. We wouldn't give a man that advice. Yes, ask for help. Nobody owes us anything, but you'd be surprised at the number of people who are willing to help you. So, yeah.
Right. So coming to you, Neeru and Naiyya.
Okay, so I totally agree with Swati. Have a life. Life is very important, and you need to rejuvenate yourself every day before you come back to work. I think those few hours are very important. So I myself, I run. I'm a Kathak dancer. I do all of this as well because it just brings me back to work more. I'm more cheerful, more happy. Second thing I do is I talk to my girls about my work. So entrepreneurship can be a very lone journey at times. So my girls exactly know what platforms are, what payment gateways are. And even though I bore the hell out of them, but then they can do very intelligent conversations on these topics. And a lot of our relatives are pretty much amazed. They think I'm trying to bias them to become entrepreneurs or digitally savvy. But I just know, I know that talking to them just pours my heart out. And I just think it becomes a family thing then. And the other thing is, I think you have to unlock the power of collaboration. Not everything needs to be a competition. Like you won't compete with everybody. I mean, it is collaboration, and yes, you need to unlock it. Last one, I would say, there's a lot of females in the tech sector who I see that relate to some positive change that they can bring to the world. So tech is only an enabler, a beneficence of a positive change. So relate yourself to the bigger story. Then you will be able to see what kind of a positive change are you all set out to make to the Indian ecosystem, to the world. I think you will see that you could be a very small alone venture, but in the overall scheme of things, you are trying to change the world, whatever little bits or pieces.
Naiyya?
Yeah, no, happy to go. I think fantastic points made by everyone. I think maybe 2 points that stand out to me. I think one is I think cut out the noise. Right, there's a lot of noise. Focus on your goal. You're here to build something meaningful, something large, something disruptive, something potentially life changing for you and your team. Right, so just focus on the goal. Go for it. There will be, I mean, even men entrepreneurs, right? They go through all these hurdles. I mean, think about a man who's starting off a venture on his own, right? I mean, him supporting his family, etc., etc. All of these noises, right? As a woman, you will find challenges. It's all right. Accept them, embrace them, but go forward, right? Because you're not alone in your journey. Women have been there, done that. They move forward, right? And the good thing I would say, the really really good thing is that you're looking at a very beautiful time where you have companies going public that are led by women, right? I mean, the Nykaa IPO has sparked the imagination of millions of retail investors and, of course, institutional investors, and has changed the narrative of how businesses can get done and built and scaled and exited and like go public, right? So you're living in a very, we all living in very, very exciting times, right? So the narratives are changing faster than we would have anticipated. So take use of that, make use of that, go faster in your journey, right? And focus on your goal. I think that's my first sort of very, very strong piece of feedback or thoughts to share with anyone who's listening in. I think the second piece is around, surround yourself with peers who force you to be better, right? Because, it's very isolating being an entrepreneur. You're with your team means well, you mean well, but you're constantly sort of stuck in this loop, right? And you're, trying to iterate or try to do incremental changes. The minute you sort of talk to people outside, the world is so large, right? The more you talk to peers outside on how to think differently for yourself as a leader, as a team builder, how do you think differently about your products, about the way you're building out your company, the way you're hiring for your teams, right? You get smarter. You get much, much smarter, right? And I think for me, that has been a very big shift, even joining the Good Glam group today, right? I mean, I think, and I just want to call it out, I think Darpan and Priyanka are fantastic entrepreneurs. And I think just the last 3.5 months, for me, that's opened up a whole new world of conversations, right? And that sort of forced me as well to actually seek and solicit more of these conversations, not just in the group now, but equally from like-minded peers, right? Or peers who are doing all that they aspire to do, right? So I think seek out those connections, seek out those relationships, seek out those learnings and conversations, because they will force you to be a better version of yourself. And that's eventually what the journey of entrepreneurship is about in the day, right? So I think these are the two pieces that leave thoughts on.
Well, thank you so much. And I would really like to wrap up this panel discussion by saying that women should not be afraid to put themselves forward. Don't think twice, just go for it. And what's really come out for me is just recognize your strengths, get yourself a good mentor and a good team, choose the right solutions. Don't let patriarchy and biases pull you down. Just focus on your goals. More importantly, trust your passion. So on behalf of Agency Reporter, thank you everyone for making the time to join us for this panel discussion, marking Women's Entrepreneurship Day 2021, powered by MIQ. Keep inspiring, ladies.